most moral demonstrations in the world. The anti-apartheid movement, the London demonstrations, the ones in Paris the other day. But Debal, we don't hear of them being killed by live bullets, Debal, do we? We've seen them being hit. We've seen the police use tactical strategies to push demonstrators away. We have seen police lock streets up using other systems to try and control demonstrations. But they don't use live bullets. Neither does the leader of the opposition's car get hit by a bazooka kind of ammunition. Debal, I remember last time I was with a very senior intelligence officer in the past demonstrations. And I told him, look, how about if Al-Shabaab goes to Raila Odinga and throws a grenade at him and that demonstration dies? What happens to this country? He ran out of the coffee shop. He ran. In an hour, Mr. Odinga had about 15 officers around him. This is a very important man. This is a man who's calling out for these demonstrations. He has been in this political struggle for the last 50 years. He is the sine qua non politician of his generation. Mr. Ruto, when he came to ODM, I was sitting there. How can Mr. Ruto tell us that these demonstrations and all these violence? I was running with him in Nairobi during 2008, and the police were shooting and throwing tear gas at us. He was doing the same thing. So, Debal, we need to stop this brinkmanship, and we have to stop this language of abuse, because I think there is a certain pain with the president. I think the president was treated really badly, to be very honest, and he's a human being. President Uhuru trashed his deputy in a way that no one has seen in this country. And there's such a thing as comeuppance. We're human beings. But clothed in the awesome power of the commander-in-chief of the military and the president of the republic of this country, he is not supposed to feel that way, Debal. He's supposed to feel completely differently. What is he supposed to do? And I accept, and I said this before. I said this on the first 3 days of the inauguration. I told him, call Mr. Uhuru Kenyatta, call Mr. Odinga to State House and have a cup of tea. I said this.
So is this instigated by the factors also both of them, they've gone through the crucible of affliction?
Yes.
Right? Raila Odinga,
yes.
well, going, of course, being in the slummers as well,
yes,
being treated unfairly,
yes,
without
no one has been treated more unfairly in this country than Mr. Odinga. No one. He has suffered for this country. I saw the other day some politicians on your show, Debal, trying to airbrush Mr. Odinga out of the history of this country. That he's not part of anything. That is called Stalinism. Democratic government in this country was brought by that man and many others, including some sitting on this table. But he was the leader of that front, and it is it is cheap to try and make him smaller than he actually is, or to diminish him. That is not patriotism. Patriotism for the country, James said that patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. We cannot use the banner of patriotism to try and push people into a hole. We cannot do that. And one of the things that I firmly believe in is in the truth. We are going to have to talk to the truth. I spoke to the Prime Minister just the other day, and I'm telling the President, we will bring the Prime Minister on a border to State House. I will go and bring him to State House if you're willing to talk to him. I'll do that today. But we must put an end to this nonsense that's happening in this country.
Yeah. All right, Peter Kagwanja, you want to comment on this? There's a very interesting editorial cartoon as well, and I want us to talk about the police brutality as well, in relation to this particular statement from the Inspector General of Police. Of course, the Constitution is there. The Constitution is over and above any notification. Because I don't think in the Constitution they enshrine that also that we should be putting the notification to the police because of the demonstration. Of course, there is a Public Order Act, but when it comes to the Constitution now, which is superior, so to speak, at the end of the day? And if there is no notification, then what does that mean? That there shouldn't be any protest because there was no notification?
Let me say that between January 23rd, when these protests, they didn't start as protests. Basically, it was a build-up to what you'd call a great social movement relating to a number of grievances that were there. And if we treated it as a social movement and engaged at that, we will not be where we are. If you listen to my remarks at that hour and my writings at that hour 23rd, they're completely different from what I'm saying, because a lot of water has passed under the bridge. Rather than softening positions have hardened. And when they harden, we also have to know where we belong. Where do you belong? I don't belong to any party, not ODM, not anything. I just belong to the Kenyan Republic of Kenya, because I personally have no problem. I can get into any plane and go anywhere and live. I have lived. Perhaps I have homes elsewhere like them. I came here in 2007 to just do what we thought we were coming home to do, to rebuild our country after Moi. Now, what we are hearing from all corners of the government and sections of the opposition is basically hardline politics, and it's not going to help us. Now, Section 37 of the Constitution is very clear that Kenyans, and you don't put something in the Constitution if you don't mean it. You can put it as a law that can be amended elsewhere. This is at the core of our Constitution. Article 37, which says that the Kenyans have the right to demonstrate, but it has a very powerful rider, which sometimes escape us. Peacefully and unarmed, right? So my call is upon those demonstrators who are there that you cannot go to demonstrate with pangas, you cannot go to demonstrate with stones, you cannot go to demonstrate with guns or all that. You demonstrate showing, basically showing your placards and what you want achieved by the country. You are saying you are giving an additional voice to the populace regarding issues. But at the same time, I don't think there's anywhere where every Kenyan must notify the police or anybody that we are going to demonstrate. Otherwise, that would not constitute spontaneous responses by Kenyans, because demonstrations or protests are demonstrations. Picketing is demonstrations. Remember, even the right for trade unions to go on strikes and others are embedded in our Constitution. Therefore, it is upon us to know that the security forces at all levels are to keep law and order, to protect lives and property, not to take lives, not to destroy property themselves. But at the same time, I want to put it this way. The protestants and demonstrators must not be instruments of regime change. Kenyans are not seeking regime change. We're not changing William Ruto. William Ruto was legitimately elected by this country. We are not on a mission for regime change. Those who are protesting should not look at changing Ruto and replacing him, because you cannot replace him
without an election.
So if you are in a hurry to get rid of him, go to Parliament and have him impeached, because that's the other avenue which we have. Alternatively, call for a plebiscite, a referendum that says that you are not happy with the president, with the government, and you follow the machinery. You can replace Ruto if you want, but for now, he is the legitimate leader of the country. And that's why we are saying the buck stops with him. Because the Constitution protected his office so that he can have that power to create a community of shared destiny for all Kenyans. All Kenyans, not one. All Kenyans. And therefore, radicalization of our politics, militarization, of the militarism within the cabinet. Because, by the way, you notice most of the members of parliament from Kenya Kwanza are almost silent. Completely. So what we are seeing is a cabinet, and mostly we are beginning. I liked Ashi's statement about the government of who by who by who.
Yes, man.
Yes, the yes men. I think it's more than that. It's a government of charlatans. For charlatans, by charlatans and for charlatans. That's why we are not being allowed for international meetings. We are going sooner or later, because of our tongue rushing, we are going to be out of meetings, international meetings.
Yes.
So, finally, let me say this.
And that was one of the pledges as well.
No,
that we should have leaders who are responsible.
That's the point. That's what we are saying. Even without prejudice, we know for sure that the government that governs are the government of honest men and women. That's the government. And that's what, the other time we talked about why Singapore became great. It is because of honoring merit, honesty, and pragmatism.
Correct.
You know, so you cannot just be rigid that I am a born-again Christian and I only have born-again Christians with me, and so on. Let me make the final point without belittling it. Why do we remember Mandela? Why do we remember Martin Luther King? Why do we remember Jomo Kenyatta? Why do we remember those kind of people? We remember them because they suffered. They were humiliated.
Yes.
They were abused. They were insulted. They were even pushed in detentions. They were even put in jails, right? And suffered all manner of persecution that you can talk about. We remember Jesus, and you carry the cross because he was persecuted. Even his symbol of death, the cross, has become the symbol of the Christians. Why? Because of the spirit of forgiveness. Ruto must find in his heart a spirit of forgiveness like we have found. My election was stolen in Muranga, and I lost a couple of money. And for an almost teacher in a Kenyan university and consultancies to raise money to go for a campaign in these constituencies is not easy. But you have to find somewhere in your heart to forgive somebody. If we don't have this spirit of forgiveness, today will be the beginning of the unleveling of this country.
Indeed.
We must begin to forgive each other. And I think Uhuru and Ruto must come together and forgive each other.
Absolutely.
What he said was right.
Yep.
I have never seen somebody so humiliated, so insulted, so demeaned like William Ruto under the second Uhuru government. I watched. It was painful. And you would look down like you are trash. And unimportant people are given when you are getting to the cabinet places and all. I know, not humiliated. You look like a rat. I mean, like a cat that is bringing a rat in the house.
Yeah.
I mean, it was horrible. You should never see this. I would not want Gachagua to go through the same
thing.
I wouldn't. It was bad. But the greatness for Ruto is forgiving those who persecuted him, and you walk the way of your savior, right? You forgive, and by forgiving, you allow Kenya to heal.
Yep.
Kenya will only heal after you have forgiven.
After you've healed yourself.
You heal yourself,
yes.
Then you heal the nation, and let those who persecuted you run from you.
Yep.
Nomi Damba.
Has he mentioned about humility that President Kibaki brought to the office? I remember, and you will all remember, when Babu Namwamba confronted Kibaki in Parliament and say, "You are not my president."
Yeah.
My president is sitting right here.
Yeah.
Raila Molodeng. And Kibaki
during the swearing in.
And Kibaki sit as a zombie. He didn't say a word. And many times Kibaki did not say a word. But all the Kenya leaders, I knew Kibaki better. He was very close to my father. And when he came to United States before the election, he came to my house. You know, we had dinner and everything. And there was always, we must unite our country. We must fight poverty. We must fight corruption. That's the word I heard from Kibaki. He didn't, I want to be president. I didn't hear that word. Or who's big and who's small. This is the test of man and woman. This is how Abraham Lincoln brought a country that was unglued to become a nation state. That is the United States that every country envy up to now. And therefore, Yes, our friend talked about how Ruto was humiliated. But when you think about people like Charles Obeah and what they went through, when you think about Raila in jail and what he went through, when you think about all these people put together and the ones who have vanished, we no longer have them, they suffer under the leadership of President Moi. But then came Kibaki, who patched the country together to move ahead as one united state called Kenya under one God. That's what our constitution calls for. And but unless we reach that wisdom, we're coming very close to the brink where we've been before. Will we, as Kenya people, get the second opportunity to move back from the brink? Or are we going to join Somalia and Sudan and the rest of the Africa? Or are we going to become Rwanda? This is a possibility for all of us listening this morning to what we are saying.
All right. Well, we want to take a short break right now, but even before we do that, as a segue just to the conversation that will be going on the other side of a break, I'm reminded of the Christmas truce of 1914. And this is another story of the peace brought about by the simplicity of a song written on a cold winter's night. The stories vary, but one I had shares that of the British soldiers who sat shuddering in the trenches on Christmas Eve. The Germans began placing candles along the top of the trench. Then, from the silence of the night, they had a lone voice beginning singing a familiar tune. They may not have understood the words. They knew the German soldiers were singing Silent Night. What was one voice became a chorus of German voices. Then the Englishmen joined in the chorus. That night, instead of gunfire, they shared Christmas carols. And then on Christmas morning, it was a German who climbed out of a trench, unarmed. Then an Englishman. They met on the battlefield and shook hands. Others followed, and soon the trenches emptied. And there were soldiers trading souvenirs and chocolates, cutting one another's hair, holding the joint services for the fallen soldiers, and playing soccer together. It was truly a Christmas miracle. And some will say it was a song written by a young priest and put to music by a young teacher that brought about the peace. But I think it was more than that. And this is where we are as a country. There is a song, and that is our national anthem. And we're calling upon Right Honorable Raila Odinga to put candles on the trenches today. And also President William Ruto to put his candle on the trench today. And of course, join on this particular chorus of our national anthem. Hey Mungu nguvu yetu, ilete baraka Kenya. We'll sing about that song on the other side of the break, because we want to see this country not really going down to the trenches, and it can happen just as it did with the Christmas truce. We'll take a short break.